Alrighty, we are live. Hopefully I'll be joined by a couple of my friends who are in some very different time zones for the moment. But I just thought I'd kind of jump on and have a chat about a couple of matches that caught my eye, even though I didn't write about them for today. I've got one up on the screen here, which is Azarenka versus Muguruza. Obviously, this match is about to start here, but I thought, Muguruza heading out towards that $2.30 mark maybe presents a little bit of value in this one. I just think, it's definitely the biggest test that Azarenka's seen so far this week. Venus Williams, obviously not the best on clay. The Sofia Kenin match, I'm happy to put as a bit of an outlier, I think, to an extent. I'm not sure what's happened there, but, Azarenka was really pushed against Kasatkina. Kasatkina served for the first set on 2 occasions there, and she was able to break back, but Muguruza just has another element to her. She definitely was very attacking against the Konta second serve yesterday, as she was in her previous rounds as well, and looks to be gaining a fair amount of confidence. Hello there to G'day, Galen. How are we going? Someone I do want to keep an eye on is, as King Kyrgios has said here, is Anna Konjuh, who's come back into the ITF level. It's great to see her back just playing tennis. It's been so long since she's been out. It's going to take a little while for her to find her feet and make her way back up the rankings, but this is a great couple of months for her to be able to try and gain some ranking points and really try and just establish herself again. It's amazing to think how young she is, considering how many years it felt like she's been on tour for. Just before this Azarenka Muguruza match gets underway, there were a couple of other ones that I was keen on a little bit later on. I did think that, let me just get it up on the screen here. I did think that Grigor Dimitrov is probably value against Shapovalov. I don't see, I think Grigor has an extra, he's a little bit more dynamic on clay. I think he's moving, he looks more comfortable on the clay. He has his backhand slice, which is able to, he's able to use it defensively to get himself back into rallies quite well. I haven't seen enough consistency from Shapovalov, but he was very good through sets 2 and 3 against Humbert in the previous round. But again, this is another significant step up. And looking at the odds, I'm just not sure that there's value in Shapovalov at the price that's on offer here. If we have a quick look here, it looks like we've got Azarenka and Muguruza is just getting underway. Is there anyone out there who has any plays on this one in particular? I was just saying before that I felt like Muguruza was a little bit of value here, but we'll see what unfolds. I'll have a quick look just while we see. We're obviously 1 point into that match there. Novak Djokovic. I know there was a few people who were very keen on Djokovic to get the victory against Dominic in quite a whitewash. It looks like he did start quite well before things got back on serve after giving up a double break advantage in the first set there. But it looks like Novak is back in control, up 6-3, 2-1 with the break. Casper Ruud, was great to see Casper come back from a set down against Berrettini. I really do like the game of Berrettini, but his backhand just continues to worry me, particularly in some key moments that, Casper did a really good job of trying to, it was almost moonballing there at times, particularly in some of those key points there to the backhand, because it just looks like it's out of control. The higher the bounce gets, the more that Berrettini seemed to be struggling with that. So it was nice to see Casper, particularly serving at 4-5 in that tie break, to be able to find his way out of that situation with an ace and an unreturnable serve, I think it was, off the top of my head. So look, I'm not sure, and looking at some of the comments here around, Berrettini may have hit his peak. I just don't know how much further you can go with such a deficiency in your game. I don't. We've seen it time and time again in big moments. Players, the best players are able to target your weakness. The best example I can think of is Nadal against Berrettini at the US Open in 2019. He was able to pepper that backhand consistently, and he had no answer for it. So, look, he's still got time. He's still very young in comparison to a lot of those players out there, but I think he does need to almost take a step back and figure out what he can do on that backhand side to make sure that he can take that next step. Because as I said before, you look at the best players, and particularly on clay. Yes, he can run around that forehand quite a bit, but unless he's hitting winners, he's putting himself out of position to be attacked. So look, I think that's an issue, particularly for Berrettini on clay. I think we also saw it the other day for Andrei Rublev on clay, that they just don't have the ability, because they can't hit winners on that side. It's very hard for them to consistently, against a player like a Casper Ruud, it's hard to be able to consistently, hit through players on a slow clay surface like we see here in Rome. Let's have a look at the comments here from Golder Bets, and thanks to everyone who has tuned in. It's 11:30 on a Saturday night here in Melbourne, but being in lockdown, there isn't a whole lot else to do. So thought we'd jump on and have a bit of a chat. Hopefully, a couple of the guys that I've done a couple of streams with in the past will jump on, in the next hour or so to have a little bit of a chat about what's been going on. And it has been a little bit of an interesting week in Rome, and I think we're going to see an even more interesting week as well with Hamburg coming up and Strasbourg for the men and the women next week. Just having so much tennis in such a short space of time that are particularly big tournaments, and looking at, there are players obviously that financially it's great for them to be able to get back on court and to earn a living and to be able to kind of take that to the next level. But ranking points here are going to be key for a lot of players, for the next 12 months to help them set themselves up. I think I saw if Shapovalov does beat Dimitrov later today, I think he'll find his way into the top 10. So, there's some real genuine chances here for a lot of players to make up a lot of ranking points. The best example of it so far has been Dominic Thiem, knocked out in the first round of the US Open in 2019, comes back and wins the title and adds a stack of points to his rankings. Now we've got Azarenka just able to hold to kick things off here. We'll have a quick look here. I think her first serve percentage did drop a little bit yesterday against Kasatkina, and Kasatkina was able to break her on a number of occasions in that first set. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. She got away by holding to 30 with a 50% first serve percentage there early. So we'll see what unfolds there. Looking elsewhere, Novak Djokovic looks to be cruising at 6-3, 3-1 in his quarterfinal, and the winner of that quarterfinal will be playing Casper Ruud tomorrow, which would be a fascinating match. Looking elsewhere, there's not, outside of Radu Albot, there probably wasn't any significant surprises coming out of the Hamburg qualifying. You're getting a mixture basically of kind of players who are already in the Roland Garros main draw and players who haven't made the Roland Garros qualifying cut. So there is a big, there's a significant difference between the best and the worst in this qualifying period. Obviously, those who are in Roland Garros qualifying won't be here in Hamburg, as qualifying does start, I believe, on Monday. So that is why there's such a big gulf there. Probably, it looks like the most competitive match there was probably, Albot winning for, it's one of his first wins in quite a while against Londero, 7-6, 6-4. And Tennys Sandgren as well was able to beat Mikael Ymer 6-3, 7-6, although he was a slight favourite there. So look, the first week before a Grand Slam will, it's always going to throw up a bit of variety. I'm sure we're going to get the case here again, getting an ATP 500 in the lead up to Roland Garros. A couple of players are obviously, wanting the points and to try and get a cheap kill in a decent tournament. But a lot of big names, and you'll see that's why there's no Rafael Nadal, there's no Novak Djokovic playing next week, because they're more interested in the fortnight to come. We'll just look through here. Thanks to those who've tuned in and who are popping some comments down. Fraser Douglas says Sandgren is in some reasonable form of late, and yeah, look, I would tend to agree. I think he's come back in some pretty decent shape. When you think about it and you look through what he's been able to produce since the tour came back after the COVID break. he is probably unlucky to get Bautista Agut in the first round of the US Open. I think before that, wins over Auger Aliassime and Sonego in that Cincinnati Western and Southern Open, whatever we want to call it. So we've had, he's had a good little run there on the hard courts, came over and he was able to beat Popyrin and Sousa last week, lost to Caruso in a 3-setter and has come back and made his way through the first round of qualifying. So look, it's a pretty quick qualifying here in Hamburg, just the 2 rounds. So he'll face Albot for a place in the main draw. So that should be, I would imagine Sandgren will be a pretty heavy favourite in that one. But we'll see what unfolds there. Just having another look around. I think still on serve for Djokovic and Koepfer, and Azarenka and Muguruza are tied at 1-1. Now, another match, I did say before that I was interested in Grigor Dimitrov at his price in his match against Shapovalov. The other one that did catch my eye, I haven't been particularly impressed with Marketa Vondrousova this week, and I just don't know if she's playing well enough to beat or to come close to Elena Svitolina. I think Svitolina, although she it was a close 2-setter against Kuznetsova, I think she's certainly playing a lot better. I just haven't seen enough consistency in the game of Vondrousova to be able to back her in with confidence here. She's it's a pretty quick turnaround for her as well. So just having a look here, it looks like she got off court. It's going to be about 17 hours in terms of turnaround from her match against Herzog and getting back on court against Svitolina. So look, quick turnaround. I did like Svitolina here at the minus game handicap. I think that's a fairly good value selection there. Now, BT on Sports, a few questions, how's the bed? Now, the reason why I didn't have any written previews today was that one, I had to go to work, but 2, I had to put a bed together, and I figured at the end of this stream, I would rather have a bed that I can actually go to sleep on than to write a couple of previews. So that's the way that all unfolded. So I don't know how it is at the moment. I think it's okay, but we'll see what happens in a couple of hours. Now we have really the first little tight moment here for Azarenka. So 40-15 to deuce. Muguruza, look, she won 6-4, 6-1 yesterday against Johanna Konta. She was just a better player in all the key moments, particularly, I think she was serving at 4-all, love 30, and ended up winning that set 6-4. Was able to break for 2-1 in the second set, and then saved 3 break points when trying to consolidate, and was able to just run away with it from there. She was far too good there in the end. So it'll be interesting to see how she handles these particularly tight moments as well. And obviously, Azarenka has put a fair amount of solid tennis together over the last month or so, but looks like Muguruza here with an early break point opportunity. At Golden Bets 85, and look, Vondrousova was exhausted, and I think if I had to list probably 5 to 10 players on the women's tour that I wouldn't want to play off a quick turnaround, I'd say Svitolina is probably on that list. It was 1-6, 6-1, 7-6 yesterday. It was a close third set there, but nearly 2.5 hours on court, 17-hour turnaround, not fantastic. But I'll be interested to hear if anyone else has any thoughts on that match. That does anything stand out to anyone watching along here for the rest of the day from Rome? Let me know in the comments, and we can have a bit of a chat about it. So it looks like Azarenka was able to save that first break point there, but still a tight moment there. Now, interestingly, earlier, and I'm on Simona Halep to win the tournament here. It looks like her biggest battle so far has been one of my favorites in Diana Yastremska so far this week, but looks like Putintseva just couldn't couldn't continue after trailing 2-6 love 2 to Simona Halep. So Halep's through to the semi-finals, so she's the first one through. She will play the winner of Azarenka Muguruza, and then on the other half of the draw, we then have the Vondrousova versus Svitolina quarterfinal, as well as the Elise Mertens versus Karolina Pliskova. Now, that was another one that did catch my eye a little bit, and look, I'm probably, in a way, glad to not be on the, I did like Muguruza in this match, but at the start of the week, I did get involved in a Elise Mertens to progress further than Victoria Azarenka selection. So that's obviously still playing out. And Azarenka, look, she has got to this point, and she very much, she may well win here. But, I'm pretty comfortable with that selection overall, just based on, Venus Williams, one, Azarenka's first round was played on a Wednesday after other players had already made their way through to the third round, which I felt was a little bit unprecedented. Then from there was, Venus Williams served for that first set against Azarenka, and it was a pretty tight two-setter. I mean, the win over Kenin was very solid, but then, Daria Kasatkina was right in that match up until she hurt herself. So, look, it's been a little bit of a charmed run, I think, for Azarenka in a lot of ways, but this is a really big test here. Muguruza is going to hit hard, and she's going to, play a fairly punishing style, and it's going to be different to what Azarenka's seen on clay this week. Just have a look in the chat. So Matthew Wheeler, can you explain what is happening with the French Open? Read that it is starting on the 21st. So I believe the qualifying is starting on the 21st. So normally and this is something that caught me out a couple of weeks ago as well, when I was kind of planning my weeks ahead. So the qualifying draw is now listed in the date. So when you look at the dates for Roland Garros, it's actually a 3-week period. So they're playing the qualifying over the first week, and then going into the main draw from there. So that's why you're seeing, we spoke about it a little bit earlier, that's why you're seeing, so Hamburg, for example, the rankings of the players in that qualifying draw, you've either got players who are already in the main draw for Roland Garros, or players who haven't made the qualifying draw for Roland Garros. So there's a big kind of disparity of about 250 or 200 ranking spots there between the best and the worst. And that's because players who are in qualifying this week, they wouldn't be able to participate in the Roland Garros qualifying. And look, the way things are at the moment, you'd be stupid to do anything but try and get into a Grand Slam position. So that's my understanding of it. I'm planning for Roland Garros qualifying to take place this week. And a lot of chat here for one Azarenka service game that still seems to be going on. We've had 2 break points saved so far. Let's get this one up on the screen here. Again, that for, looking, and when you look at Muguruza over the last couple of rounds as well, she's really been attacking second serves, and we're seeing that again here. Look, we've got Azarenka 8 out of 10 on her first serve, points won, 3 out of 9 on the second. So, it's going to be a key spot here for Azarenka, and she was able to get away with a good hold here for 2-1 early. Just having a look elsewhere, and I thought Djokovic was going to do this quite comfortably, but it doesn't seem to be the case here. It's back on serve, with Djokovic will be serving at 3-4 after the change of ends there. Just having a quick look, there doesn't seem to be any other tennis going on at the moment. It looks like we're all wrapped up in Hamburg for now. It looks like there might be one more there. That's the Bublik versus Morang match, which I would really like to not be involved in. I just get this one up here. I don't know if Flash Score's trying to play tricks on me or not, but one screen says that Azarenka's back at deuce, but I think that might be a little bit of a lie. the ATP WTA app seems to say that Azarenka did hold there for 2-1. If you're interested, I think I'm thoroughly enjoying not getting involved in Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal matches this week. It's because I don't really want to get involved with lines of, I think, was it Nadal was minus 7.5 today, which kind of very small margin for error. I know he's incredibly good, but Diego's not the worst on clay. He's probably a top 10 clay player on his day. He's probably not doing the best at the moment, but it's certainly a match I don't really see myself getting involved in. I much prefer to get involved in that Shapovalov-Dimitrov match. Okay, Ethan, thanks for jumping on and saying hello. As I said, I'm not sure how long this will be going on for. We'll see what kind of pans out. But if you have any questions about any particular matches, let me know and we can have a little bit of a chat about it. I must say, as I said a little bit before, look, it's an interesting slate of matches, I think, for today. Look, I'm comfortable having not written or previewed anything for today because it does look like a tricky little slate here. I did think Muguruza was value, but look, I think she's really going to need to hang tight, and Azarenka can play with a little bit of freedom, I think, in this first set, considering she is serving first. So if she can keep that advantage, it will put a little bit more pressure onto Muguruza. Coming up a little bit later on, I do like Svitolina at the minus game handicap. And look, Mertens, Pliskova, the odds look about right. I do like Mertens here. I think Pliskova is still a little bit one-dimensional and we're just not seeing the best from her. But it'll be interesting to see what unfolds there. So probably first little pressure spot here for Muguruza. Love 15, but is able to get back to 15 all. Was I surprised the Joke Online total was low? Good question. No, I wasn't. I just didn't think... Look, to play against a player like Novak on clay, you need to have a significant weapon of some type to be able to hit through him. I just didn't see that today. I'm looking at it, and obviously the total has already gone over, and Novak looks to be perhaps in a little bit of trouble serving at 3-4, 15-30. Look, if I had to pick a side, I probably would have gone the under there, to be honest. I think, I don't have a particular preference to get involved in opposing him, particularly after what happened in Flushing Meadows. It's a really funny little spot here, I think. Obviously it's not his priority. His priority will be Roland Garros. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity to try and get into a position to have a crack at Rafael Nadal over a best of 3 on clay to try and send a message of some sort. I think everyone's trying to send some sort of message in the lead up to Roland Garros. Obviously, he probably would have preferred to have not been here and having taken it off after winning the US Open, but things obviously got thrown up in the air there a little bit. I don't feel, and I didn't really want to get involved in watching, looking at, it's at 6-3-4 all, so it's gone over the total of 17.5, but, he's earned, it's probably come down to breakpoint conversion a little bit for him. He's only converted 4 of 11. I think that's probably, a little bit low compared to what we would expect to see him on clay against, players outside the top 30 and particularly outside the top 30 on clay. So that's been, probably a little bit disappointing for him, but he is still finding a way. And look, I'd expect here, he's at 6-3-4 all. I'd expect him to exert a little bit of pressure here on the Koepfer serve. And it could be a 6-3, 6-4 type result. Just coming back to the match that we've got up on the screen, it looks like Azarenka has been able to convert, and that break point, and that's what it's going to come down to here. Is that that's a lot of it's going to be break point conversion. Muguruza was able to hold to Love to kick things off, but it looks like a couple of first serve points lost there, particularly in that one. And look, playing behind, as I said, the scoreboard pressure that Azarenka can exert by holding serve is going to go a long way to helping her in this particular instance. Always nice to see other people agreeing with me on particular plays. Yeah, look, it's a bit of a funny one. I've been against Shapovalov the last 2 rounds. I thought Martinez kind of threw it away a little bit, particularly in that second set when I think he was up 3-love and had 15-30 on the Shapovalov serve. A couple of key double faults, a couple of issues that I thought he was going to be better in those particular moments. And the first 2 times that Martinez was broken were on some pretty poor drop shot decisions in the end, and they weren't even close to going in. So look, if I made the comment before the Hamburg game that if Shapovalov was hitting winners and defending really well and making the most of those opportunities on break points, and it wasn't Martinez handing them to him, then I probably would have been a little bit more impressed. But he came out and was really solid through sets 2 and 3 against Humbert after dropping that first set. So look, he is improving, and look, he's a fantastic player, and a win today will put Shapovalov into the top 10. I don't think he'll be leaving there anytime soon based on what we have seen. He is looking more consistent. So look, I do like Dimitrov just because I think his game is a little bit more suited to the clay, and his movement looks more comfortable on the clay. And I think his matchup, one hand back, we've got a lefty and a righty, both with one-handed backhands. It's going to be a pretty interesting and a pretty good match to watch. But I prefer the form here of Dimitrov, particularly over the best of 3. And it looks like that there is a few kind of in agreement with that that they've certainly, and I'd agree that opponents have had chances to put Shapovalov away and haven't been able to make the most of them. Any Roland Garros thoughts for outright bets? Good question. It's funny because I was just thinking back to the US Open and the last, particularly on the men's side, looking at the last 8 and thinking how great it was to not have to worry about a short-priced favourite in Djokovic or Nadal or Federer or anything for quite a while. Obviously, that's not the case now because it's effectively Nadal, then Djokovic, then Thiem, then daylight. It is a tricky one. It's very hard to go against Nadal really in any capacity on the men's. The women's, it's we've seen a lot of withdrawals and we've seen a few people come out, but from what I've seen this week and over the last couple of weeks, Simona Halep does look pretty solid through her body of work on clay over the last month. My worry for her, though, is that she will come up against someone who can play, a lights-out game and really hit through her. We saw that last year at Roland Garros that she just got, it was particularly one-sided, her loss. So, look, it is a little bit of a dangerous game, I guess, with Halep because there is probably a reliance on her opponent to be a little bit off, but she is moving very well and she's looked very solid across this week. I'll see if I can grab some of the odds, the current odds up at the moment. Obviously, a lot of places haven't had odds available because we don't know who's going to pull out. We saw Naomi Osaka pull out the other day, on short notice. So let me just grab this one up here. As Azarenka holds from love 40 to take a 4-1 lead. So looking at that now, and as we said before, look, a lot of it's going to come down to breakpoint conversion. Azarenka's 1 from 1. Muguruza is 0 from 5 early on in the 28 minutes in. Just tried to get the odds up for the French Open, and there doesn't seem to be any available, which isn't a huge surprise. I wouldn't want to be putting odds up, and we don't really know who's going to be getting involved. Yeah, look, it's players. It's going to be a little bit of a funny one, and when you think back to the US Open and players who took the most of their opportunities, you look at players who have gone deep in slams before and made big runs. It was no surprise. Azarenka and Osaka made the final. They knew what they needed to do. They weren't in unfamiliar territory. If anything, probably the lack of crowd probably helped them. So I'd be looking for players who perhaps have perhaps made a run deep at a slam before. I probably wouldn't be including Vondrousova in that based on what I've seen. But even the likes of a Svitolina or a Mertens or these consistent players, it is going to be it's going to be tough to knock them off based on what we've seen recently. I mean, Svitolina is probably a poor choice of name there from me, but I'm enjoying the fact that the women's is so wide open this year. Even though there's no Barty, there's no Osaka, that's taken two experienced names out of there. I wouldn't be inclined to go near Serena, I don't think. Look, it is going to be interesting. I think a lot of it will be dependent on the draw and who finds their way into a friendly patch of the draw. But look, I'm hoping to have a live show up at some point, not long after the draw, just with some kind of early thoughts, and then I'll be doing the full previews like I did for the US Open and the Australian Open for the overall outrights, as well as some trading selections. I've just seen in the comments there are some odds up on Betfair. They're not, obviously it's very low liquidity because we don't know who's going to be involved, but Simona Halep is the clear favourite, and deservedly so. Scrolling a little bit further down, Kiki Burton is a bit of a funny one, and if Alex does come on a little bit later, I can have a chat to him about Kiki Burton's being the second favourite at the moment for Roland Garros. I just haven't seen enough from her at Grand Slam level. Her best performances have come in smaller tournaments, and I just don't know if I can trust her at such a short price in this field where a lot of players on their day can do a lot of damage. But when you think about it, when you go through, and I'm just reading off some of the odds from Betfair at the moment, we've got Halep, Burtons, Svitolina, Muguruza, Serena Williams, Victoria Azarenka. Coco Gauff is eternally under the odds at this stage of her career. I don't think clay's for her. I don't think her second serve holds up enough on the surface. If we keep going down, we've got Andreescu then off no tennis in a very long time. Kvitova, clay's not her best surface. Kontaveit, who has shown that she can be pretty solid at times on clay, but I just don't know if she can bring it all together in a second week of a slam just yet. Elise Mertens is sitting around 24-1. I wouldn't really be going near Sophia Kenin based on what we've seen recently. Elena Rybakina is probably the odds are about right around that $34, $35, 35-1. And then from there, it's probably the most open slam that I can remember. There are so many players under 100-1. Even a Fiona Ferro who won a tournament on clay a couple of weeks ago. Haven't seen her since, and look, she's been pretty solid. So she was great in, I think it was Palermo she won a couple of weeks ago. So she's one to keep an eye on. I mean, you got Elena Ostapenko, probably, we're heading into extravagant territory as we scroll down through Ostapenko, Vekic, Gerges. I wouldn't go anywhere near, coming back from injury. Kim Clijsters, No. Kiki Mladenovic, no. Yeah, it really it drops off quite quickly. I mean, Svetlana Poronkova is probably about 25th favorite, and she, look, it was her first tournament back in 39 months. So, yeah, it's going to be wide open, but a lot of it will come down to that draw and dynamics, as there are so many players, and players like a Halep. She's a deserving favorite, but if she catches a peak performance from a Pliskova or a Kvitova or an Anisimova, she can find herself on the back foot very, very quickly. So it's going to be interesting to see how this draw pans out. Yeah, I did wonder what was going on with Fiona Ferro since she did win that tournament. I know the plan was never really to go to the US, but it has been a little bit strange to have not seen her since. Alrighty. Question from Gambling Geese. Tennis books that I recommend. Well, it depends on what. There's a lot of sports betting books that I could recommend, and I will shoot you through a list afterwards. I've got a couple here on my desk. But from a tennis standpoint, probably it depends on what you're interested in from a tennis betting standpoint. But someone who I have a lot of time for and will happily promote his book is Dan Weston's book. So if you go to, or even if you just go to his Twitter handle, which is at Tennis Ratings, I think, unless he's changed it recently. I don't think he has. At Tennis Ratings, he has a rating service that he emails out daily as well for his work. But he's done a trading book. I think you can get it as an ebook or you can get it delivered. I got mine delivered, but it took a little while coming from the UK to Australia. But if you get in touch with at Tennis Ratings on Twitter, I think he should be able to point you in the right direction there. But look, there's plenty of sports books. I've probably got about 15 of them. So I will send you through a list. Just send me a direct message on Twitter, and I can send you through a list of a couple that are probably some good starting points. But as I said, it depends a little bit on what you're after in particular, because it can there's lots of different things out there. But look, you can't go wrong with a couple of the, not with a lot of the content that's out there. Now, just as we're having a little bit of a look, it looks like Novak Djokovic has dropped the second set in Rome in these quarterfinals. So, look, he had 4-love in the first set and 30-all and ended up taking that one 6-3. Second set is up 3-1 and has now dropped that 4-6. So it looks like he couldn't convert 3 break points at 4-all and then was broken to 30 when trying to stay in the set. It looks like they're going to a third, which will push things back into a later part of the evening for myself, as we've just gone past midnight. Now, again, Azarenka serving at 4-2. She has faced break points in a couple of her service games, but it looks like she's able to edge ahead here at 30-15. Now, I'll just have a little quick look. I think we did have, let's see if I might not be able to get up on the screen, but I think I saw before that the Hamburg draw had been drawn for next week. I'll see if they've uploaded into the app, which they have. Now, it's an interesting draw. Look, Daniil Medvedev is the top seed. Panos Tsitsipas is the 2 seed. So they're obviously at each end of the draw. There's a few players in there that are horribly out of form and have made the decision to play the week before a slam. As I said, we don't normally see the likes of Medvedev and Tsitsipas play before a Grand Slam, but they need time on court, particularly on the clay. Now, having a look, there's a lot of qualifiers, lucky losers, and that's why I probably won't be getting involved into the final round of qualifying for Hamburg tomorrow in a great deal, particularly in those matches that have the players who are potential lucky losers or into the draw, just because I'm assuming there might be a few more people pull out of that particular tournament. If you have a look at the first quarter, we've got Medvedev, Humbert, Ruud. So look, Ruud might pull out if he goes deep into Rome this week. Benoit Paire, who needs time on court more than anyone at the moment. Kohlschreiber as a wild card who, look, has really struggled since the tour was restarted. And, someone has to win out of Kohlschreiber and Fabio Fognini in the first round. So interesting little spot there with a couple of qualifiers thrown in as well. To see the likes of, as I said, the top 8 seeds having Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Monfils, Bautista Agut, Rublev, Fognini, Schwartzman, and Khachanov, it's a pretty solid field for the week before a slam. Kevin Anderson is one who probably needs time on court. He's looked a little bit below his best, or actually a lot below his best since the tour was restarted, since he's come back from injury. Kei Nishikori, another one who, look, and this is this kind of brings up an interesting conversation around Mazzetti, who was able to beat Stan Wawrinka and Nishikori this week, and obviously he got a lot of fanfare that came with that. I think those wins have been overrated a little bit, and I'm not sure we're going to see value on the Italian in the next little while. And the reason I say that is because, Stan Wawrinka was coming back from injury. He did hurt himself in that Challenger tournament, so he wasn't near his best that particular night. And look, if you look at the way that Nishikori was covering the court and his general body language and attitude, I think he's just grateful at the moment to be back on court. He didn't look to have that competitive edge that we've seen from him over the years. So, look, yes, the wins are good in terms of the name of the player. And, when you think about Stan Wawrinka and you think about Nishikori and you think about, defeating them, I think it's probably would have carried a little bit more weight a couple of years ago. But I just don't think, and I think we saw that flip then to when Mazzetti was a heavy favourite, that he struggled a little bit with that expectation that came with, the pressure, and, he was expected to win. So I think that was what we saw unfold there. I don't think, and, it's a little bit the same with, we've got Alcaraz and we've got Mazzetti, and we've got these players who are, going to be at the top of this game for a very, very long time. We just need to remember that at the moment, because of their age, that we are going to see great flashes of brilliance and we're going to see some quality performances, but we're also going to see some inconsistencies that are just going to come. I know that Alcaraz has been compared to Rafael Nadal in some ways, but look, everyone at that age, particularly with the game how it is at the moment, it's a very physical game, and to be able to back up week after week, it gets tricky, even day after day at ATP level after spending a lot of time at Challenger level. So, look, I think it was great that he was able to beat Stan and to beat Nishikori, but I feel like the hype may have got a little bit big on him this week, and I'll be interested to see what he opens up at for his next match, whenever that will be. We'll just have a look around. So Muguruza serving here to stay in the first set. Looks like the Novak match has just started in the third as well, with Novak an early love 30 there. I'll be expecting that to be a relatively one-sided set, but I thought the same about the first two sets, so we'll see what happens there. If anyone has any questions about any of the other matches that are coming up, we have kind of touched on them a little bit. I think, as I said, there's no previews or official plays or anything for me today. This is probably my last day off from writing between now and, I'd say, at least the end of the French Open. So it's going to be a big 3 weeks or so. So there was nothing that was compelling me enough to sit down while I was, had other things on and work on today. So I was happy to give it a miss. But if I did have to pick one for today, it would probably be, look, it's hard to split the two of them. I would probably go with Dimitrov over Shapovalov as the main one. And then from there, probably the second one would be Svitolina at the minus games against Vondrousova. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about Vondrousova, she had a long match and she looked exhausted against Herzog yesterday. And look, it's a quick turnaround for it. It looked like it was going to be about 17 hours before she's back on court against Svitolina, who should be pretty fresh, having not played a lot of tennis before this week. So I thought that looked to be a value price there. That match has obviously been pushed back a little bit because I think it may be on after the Novak Djokovic match, which has now gone to a third. Let me just check the schedule. No, that would be Elise Mertens. So looks like Svitolina Vondrousova is on after Azarenka versus Muguruza. So we can, time permitting, as I said, it's midnight here, but we might roll through if there's enough interest over the next hour or two, and we might be able to catch the start of that match. Now, looking at the rest of the players, as I said, so Dimitrov to defeat Shapovalov is probably the main one. Closely followed by Svitolina at the minus games. I don't really have a desire to get involved with the Schwartzman versus Nadal match or any Nadal. Nadal and Djokovic this week have had game handicaps that have rivaled best of 5 set matches. So, look, good luck to them. I'd love to see Diego Schwartzman push Nadal in some capacity. I mean, Nadal's it's effectively been one-way traffic for him over the last, through the first 2 rounds, and he looks to be in good shape. The question mark sometimes about Nadal getting to Roland Garros, if you could ever have a question mark about him, has been how much tennis he plays in the lead up, and he's certainly don't have to worry about that this year with him. Alrighty, Azarenka now serving for the first set at 15 love. Let me just have a quick look down at the in-play odds. So into $1.25, there's Azarenka, and Muguruza's out to $3.75, which is probably about right. If Azarenka does hold here, I would be interested to see, if Muguruza, if she were able to hold in the first game of the second set and put a little bit of scoreboard pressure on there, I'd be almost inclined to, I'll have a little bit of a look at her odds there and see if we can find a bit of value in some capacity on the Spaniard. But, when we go back, as we said, a lot of it came down to breakpoint conversion in this first set. Azarenka 1 for 1, Muguruza 0 for 5. So, Azarenka still only winning 33% behind that second serve. So, look, I think Muguruza will have chances at some point. Speaking of chances, it looks like Novak Djokovic has now been unable to convert another 4 breakpoint opportunities early in set 3 in his match. So that takes his conversion rate, which we already said was probably below average, is now sitting at 4 out of 18 for the match. So that's very unlike Novak, as he trails now love 1 in the first set. A little interesting spot here. So another second serve 0.1 here for Muguruza. So that's now 11 out of 16 on the second serve of Azarenka. So Victoria want to find her first serve here in the next point or two to try and keep the pressure off. Now, thanks to everyone who is tuning in or has posted a comment or a chat or anything along those lines. These will probably be quite prominent over the next couple of weeks as the time zone's a little bit more friendly for the French Open. So look, I'll try and jump on for the near the start of a couple of the first days, just to when there's a lot of tennis in action. I think the day 1 and the day 4 US Open streams work quite well when there's a lot of tennis on court and lots of things to talk about. I think particularly when it was quite hot at the US Open, trying to find a couple of those players who were struggling physically in the conditions. It was nice to find a couple of interesting spots in those early matches as Azarenka brings up a set point here at 40-30. So as we said there, those first serves were going to be important, and she's been able to put 2 first serves into play from 15-30 to now 40-30. As I said, yes, we've got the 5 of 16 here on the second serve, but that is an elite first serve percentage. of 19 of 23 or 20 of 24 now as she takes the first set 6 games to 3. As I said, what I'm hoping to see, and something I'll have a little bit of a look at the odds for, in this second set here for Muguruza, is if she can hold serve. We've seen, and when we go through the point by point of this first set in particular, Azarenka hold to 30, hold to deuce saving 2 break points, hold to deuce saving 3 break points, hold to 30, hold to 30. Muguruza's finding her way into these return games. She's just hasn't been able to convert. Whereas, compared, Muguruza was able to get away with a love hold, but broken on the only opportunity that she faced. And then again, with a couple of tight holds, but I don't think, it's a game of very, very fine margins at the moment. As we see here that, Muguruza's dropped out to $4.33 in play. Now, I'm hoping to have someone, maybe a guest or two in the next little bit. It depends a little bit because I know it's very, very early in the United States at the moment compared to it being very, very late here. So if the timing works, we will hopefully get a couple of people to come on and say hello and talk about their thoughts over the last week or so of tennis and maybe look to Hamburg and Strasbourg for this week. But it's, from my perspective, it's probably going to be the busiest 3 weeks in, the US Open was busy, but I think this week, the added element of having Grand Slam qualifying is going to make things a whole lot busier in terms of previews and content. And, as I said, having switched back to providing everything for free since the tour returned after COVID, it's allowed a lot of flexibility, but look, it is going to be busy, and I want to try and get as much free stuff out there as I can that's going to be of use. I don't want to go overboard just for the sake of doing it. So, I will still try and find my spots and find the best things to write about. But it is going to be busy when you consider there's 2 tournaments on this week, plus then Grand Slam qualifying leading into a Grand Slam. So, look, it is going to be busy, but things will fall away a little bit after the French Open in terms of content, because there just won't be as much tennis over the next couple of months. But look, I'm happy to kind of work my way through a couple of weeks, considering we've just not long come back to the tour after 6 months off. So look, it's just nice to have tennis back. It's nice to have a lot of tennis back. It's nice to see these players have the ability to earn some money, earn some ranking points, and it'll be interesting to see how things unfold at the French Open in particular, just because, look, there were so many question marks around the US Open in terms of how secure their bubble was, considering the Benoit Paire incident and the issue around, I think it ended up being 6 positive tests. If players had issues with the US bubble, they're going to have some issues with the French Open bubble. So, the fact that they're still planning on having crowds in some capacity is mind-blowing to me. But look, it's, if it goes off without a hitch, then good luck to them. Obviously, there's a little bit of risk, and they're trying to mitigate things where they can. But look, I just hope that they can get through this tournament without any particular issues flaring up. It's interesting looking at the response of, particularly on social media, I think that the response of a lot of people to Azarenka's assistance to Kasatkina in comparison to some things Novak Djokovic or some others have done around, if you think about the situation that people have been very critical of people shaking hands, let alone going over and helping a player off. And look, I'm not saying she did the wrong thing, because she's obviously maternal instincts kick in, and you want to try and help out wherever you can. But it was interesting and sitting there watching Azarenka kind of help Kasatkina off the court and be obviously so close and assisting. If that had been a player like a Novak, and look, I've been very critical of Novak, but I think he does probably get a slightly raw deal sometimes in terms of the response of things. So look, I just hope nothing. I mean, I hope no one plays cards. I think that's the key thing that we've taken away from the US Open is don't play cards with Benoit Paire. But look, maybe the scare on having Paire and the French players not be able to leave the hotel for 14 days, maybe it might kick other people into gear to take this perhaps a little bit more seriously. Only time will tell, but I hope they can get through this tournament without a hitch, because it just doesn't sound like it's a bubble that's anywhere near as secure as things were in the US. And look, if people had issues in the US, then they're certainly going to have issues in France. Now, we've just ticked over, we're about to tick over into nearly an hour, and obviously I'm getting a little bit sick of the sound of my own voice. So look, if anyone does have any questions or anything, do let me know. Muguruza here serving at love 15 to kick off the second set here. As I said, I was hoping to see her hold here early, but looks like she's putting herself under a little bit of pressure here with a love 15 or a love 30 now. So we may not actually see that opportunity to perhaps find an interesting spot from an odds perspective. And look, this is the thing with Azarenka. She is great at exerting scoreboard pressure in key moments, and we saw that. With that hold, I think it was at 3-1 in the first set when she's able to dig herself out of a love 40 hold, not a love 40 position, and deliver a pretty solid set from there on in. We'll just have a quick look at the stats here for the start of the second set for Muguruza. Not a lot to really write about. She's able to, I don't know how someone ends up with -1 aces, but put that down to a flash score quirk. The other thing I did want to ask for anyone who is kind of watching along at the moment, I am looking to run a couple of competitions over the French Open. So if you have any suggestions of competition ideas, please let me know. Look, it's something I've been able to do a couple over the last couple of weeks, but wanting to do a couple more. The feedback's been positive about the ones that have been run. So look, if you do have any ideas, please let me know, either in the chat or by get in touch with me on Twitter. Just send me a tweet or send me a direct message, and I will certainly take any feedback on board. Breakpoint conversion, as we said, has been key here so far. Azarenka 1 for 1, and now she's given herself 2 opportunities here to potentially break early in this second set. Just casting an eye around, so Djokovic is able, to win 3 games in pretty quick time since we last checked in on that one. He was down one love, but has won 12 of the next 13 points to find himself up 3-1. Bublik is up 5-2 in the Hamburg qualifying. I didn't think, looking at the odds, started as a slight underdog there against Moraine. Didn't think he was the worst against Marin Cilic in Rome, losing in 3 sets. But look, it'll be interesting to see how if he can finish off that match strong there. As we said, Djokovic's up 3-1. Azarenka's been able to take that service break to kick things off in the second. And there's not much else to really check in on there. Alrighty. I'm just going to quickly get the odds up for some of the matches that are coming up a little bit later on. I'm just going to check the line that is currently available for that Svitolina Vondrousova match. It looks like it's sitting around that -4.5. So look, I think it has kind of moved out a little bit. I think it was around that -4 a little bit earlier on today. Look, minus 4.5, but looking at around kind of $1.90 or minus 111. It's not too bad, I think, given the circumstances. I will say that, look, I have generally not a big fan of the minus 4.5 game handicaps. More so of an issue in men's tennis than it is in women's tennis. But look, in a lot of instances, if you think about, hypothetically, say you had Novak Djokovic as minus 4.5 games against John Isner, or Milos Raonic. I just want to say Isner because he's not even playing that well at the moment. Against Raonic. If you're going to buy your way into a line of minus 4.5, either way, you kind of, it is one of the ones that outside of tie breaks, it's a little bit more dependent on who wins the toss and who serves first. If you think back and you go through it, that, you take Djokovic minus 4.5 and Raonic serves first, that, you're going to need 3 breaks of serve instead of 2. Unless you do find, a tie-break 6-2 type situation. But I think because, in this situation, slow clay court, Svitolina is going to grind down Vondrousova. Vondrousova, yes, she did win the second set 6-1, but she also lost the first set 6-1. So, look, there is the tendency to, drop a set cheaply. And one of my big question marks for Vondrousova recently has been her ability to her application and consistency in her game. I think there's such a big, there's a dramatic difference between her best and her worst, and I just don't know if we're going to see as much of her best when, she's coming off a long match, quick turnaround against a player who, look, Svitolina is not going to make a lot of errors, so it's going to be an interesting match. But I think, Svitolina sitting at minus 4.5 isn't too bad. I'd probably be more inclined to go for the minus 4.5 than the under 20.5, but only ever so slightly have that preference. Now, much like the first set, Azarenka's found herself in a love 40 hole early, and this time Muguruza has been able to get the break. So it looks like we might, if Muguruza can get a hold here, we'll have a little bit of a look at the odds and see, as we said before, Azarenka hasn't held to anything better than 30 so far, but is up, 6-3, 1-all. So if Muguruza can find a little bit of pressure here, it might be an interesting spot to take the Spaniard to maybe make a little bit of a run here in some capacity. A big thank you to King Kyrgios, who's keeping an eye on Anna in her ITF comeback this week, serving for the set 5-love up. Look, Anna has had a pretty horrible run with injury, and it's just nice to see her back. She's playing in, is it Zagreb, I think. It's just nice to see her back on court. I think it was an elbow issue that's really flared up, and she's had issues with it, recurring over the last couple of years. And yeah, it's in that Zagreb 25K. There's a lot of good players coming and playing at a lot of different levels this week. So we'll see. There is a lot of quality tennis going on in a lot of different places, which is, look, it's good to see a lot of tournaments, underway. And, we're not hearing too many reports of any issues at a lot of these tournaments. Obviously, the UTR Pro Series is still going on in the US, so that means that Evan King's still playing tennis, as he's been doing for, multiple times a day for months and months. Now, we'll just jump back to the one on the screen here. No one wants to hold serve early in the second set. Muguruza finds her way back into a love 30 hole. And we just have a little bit of a look around. So Bublik was able to take that first set against Meringue in Hamburg 6-2. So he's able to serve first now in the second set there. Novak Djokovic about to hold for 4-2 in the deciding set there, which is a little bit of a surprise. And look at that, another triple break point opportunity this time for Victoria Azarenka. We just have a little bit of a look through. First serve percentage, 40% for Azarenka, 44% for Muguruza early in the second set. So look, that's not going to help. But having said that these players are now combined 0 for 6 on their first serve points won. So look, it's a bit of a shaky start to this second set from both players as Azarenka gets the break for 2-1. So now we're 3 games in, and we've only had 3 points on to the server. So we are, I know a couple of people would potentially say we're 25% of the way to what some may call the perfect set in terms of 12 breaks of serve, but I don't think we're going to see that today with these two. I think we're going to see a couple of holds in the next couple of games here, barring some more poor first serve percentage play. Looks like I jinxed Novak Djokovic. I thought he was going to hold there at 40-15, but has now found his way back to deuce. But apart from that, there isn't a whole lot of other tennis going on. Sue Sui and Strycova look to be winning their doubles match. There are obviously a very, very capable doubles combination and were very heavy favourites in their match coming in. And I think we'll keep the attention here on Azarenka versus Muguruza. So just to recap what's gone on so far today in Rome. So Casper Ruud was able to get over Matteo Berrettini in a third set tiebreak. So he got the job done 4-6, 6-3, 7-6 in just under 3 hours on court. Pretty interesting match. And the biggest deficiency, and we talked about this a little bit earlier when we started the stream, biggest deficiency is the second serve of Berrettini, but also the backhand of Berrettini. So he's only able to win 39% on his second serve, which is not great unless you're really consistently finding that first ball. But Ruud did a really good job of systematically breaking down the backhand of Berrettini at times, and particularly on that clay court that the bounce a little bit off. Berrettini just looked to be struggling a little bit with timing and in a lot of instances there. And on the women's side of things, in the only quarterfinal that's been completed so far, and it wasn't really completed, but Halep was able to progress 6-2, 2-love retired against Yulia Putintseva. Putintseva looked to be struggling with injury there and obviously has one eye on the French Open starting Monday week. What was that? Anyway, I've just got word. We may not have a guest on. We'll see. As I said, it's a little bit early in the US at the moment, so we'll see if anyone does want to wake up and come onto the stream. Azarenka here serving at 15 all and 2-1. Really key game here. I think if she can kind of push her way to that 6-3, 3-1 position, it's she's on her way to running away with the match. But Muguruza is just hanging around in a big way here. So look, it's again, across the match now, it's Azarenka's 6 of 20 on that second serve. So there's a little bit of a vulnerability here. Whereas Muguruza got 47% and 53%. It's there's not as much of a glaring deficiency, but neither are obviously fantastic as well. So looks like the first serve of Azarenka is the best stat on the court, and the second serve of Azarenka is the worst at the moment, as Muguruza brings up a couple of break points. So again, look, it's going to come down to conversion here a little bit. We'll see if Azarenka can save this one here. Obviously, Muguruza has been broken 3 times, but has only been able to save 1 breakpoint opportunity through that little patch. So we'll see what unfolds here. And we have another break of serve. So Muguruza continues to hang around. Just see if we can get some of the stats up for some of the other matches. So Novak Djokovic serving at 4-3 in the 3rd set of his match. So, you know, with the total set at 17.5, it's gone well over that. It's 6-3, 4-6, 4-3. But as I said before, you know, I wasn't surprised. I actually thought that was going to be an incredibly one-sided match. And look, if it weren't for some, you know, looking at it, if, you know, Novak saved 0 or 4 breakpoint opportunities and converted 5 of 19. So there's probably 2 uncharacteristic stats there for Novak, and they're 2 pretty key ones. Alrighty, Muguruza is serving here at 2-all and 15 love. Good to see 6-1 first set for Anna Konjuh in her comeback in that 25K in Zagreb. $40 love here for Muguruza. So we might get that little situation after all. And to see if we can see if she can exert a little bit of scoreboard pressure here on Azarenka for the first time in the match. Now I'm just going to get the odds up as what's currently available on Betfair, just to get a bit of an idea of what we might be dealing with here. So Muguruza sitting around $3.60 at the moment, which is an interesting price. You know, she was $2.30 after $2.30 at the start of the match. Obviously, Azarenka taking the first set has brought her price into that $1.37. But if Muguruza can hold here, look, as I said, it's the first time she'll be able to exert some scoreboard pressure whilst also having found her way basically into every service game of Azarenka so far. So look, it's going to be an interesting service game coming up here for Azarenka. Now, a question from Phrase Douglas: how did I celebrate after Hurkacz knocked off Rublev? Well, look, it was about 3:30 in the morning. I had watched. I was actually asleep for the start of the match, so I missed the start of it. I woke up, unfortunately, at 5-3, 30 love to Hurkacz, and then he dropped serve and found himself into a tiebreak. And then I missed parts of the match and went back and watched it on replay. I did not celebrate it at all, really. It's been it's nice to have something, you know, it's nice to have found one of those prizes and have a player follow through and finish off, which was really good to see. I think, you know, it's always going to be a roller coaster when you're taking, you know, prices like that and betting units and taking value prices, you know, like 2.5 units at you know, $5 odds. But it was nice after a number of those opportunities having, you know, really good starts and perhaps fading away. It was nice to see him respond after losing that second set. And that second set was incredibly one-sided. I think Rublev lost 1 point on serve, I think, in the second set. But you know what Hurkacz was able to do, and it's, you know, in a way, it's similar to what Casper Ruud did to Matteo Berrettini. He refused to make errors at times and really found a way to get the ball consistently into the backhand of Rublev, and it generated a couple of errors. And if Hurkacz, who's a pretty solid mover on clay for his size, he could, he found himself in spots to extend rallies by 1 or 2 shots, and in the end it was enough to be able to get that break. I think it was in the 4th game of the 3rd set, and it was he looked really strong through that 3rd set. Obviously he wasn't able to follow that up and lost to Schwartzman in 3 sets yesterday, but look, it was a good win. But again, look, Rublev, I'm just not sure Rublev's quite there yet on clay. Again, I think he can, if he wants to keep running around and playing his forehand, then that's fine, and good luck to him. But he's going to get found out at times. And, we saw that. And look, I will use it as an example. If you go back and have a look at the game in which Hurkacz broke Rublev in the 3rd set, you'll notice for the couple of rallies in the lead up to, I think it was the rallies at 15 love, 15 all, and 15-30, that Hurkacz basically went probably 90% of the time into the backhand of Rublev, to the point where Rublev was almost camping there, and he was expecting backhands to come, but he wasn't hitting winners. He wasn't doing a lot with it. And then on the break point opportunity, it was actually quite smart from Hurkacz. He was able to basically throw Rublev off, and he didn't hit a fantastic backhand into the forehand side of Rublev, but Rublev was just expecting it to go to his backhand and got completely wrong-footed and got nowhere near the ball. So I think there's a spot there, and I hope we get Rublev at the start of the French Open against a competent clay quarter who has the ability to kind of limit errors and really put some pressure on. Speaking of pressure, we've got Azarenka in another situation here at 15-40, and now she's able to save the first one. So in one more breakpoint opportunity here for Muguruza in, look, what could be a pretty key game here. Just having a look at the odds. Muguruza's into $2.96, Azarenka out to $1.51, which is probably about right given the situation. So for those who may have just jumped on, we've had one hold of serve so far in this second set, and that was Muguruza in that 5th game there. So there was a lot of breaks early on. We'll just have a quick look. We haven't looked at the stats for a little bit as Muguruza gets the break for 4-2. Just to make things a little bit more interesting here. Have a look at set 2. Look, not serve-friendly stats based on the 5 of the 6 games being service breaks, but again, let me keep coming back to it. That first serve points one's dropping off a little bit for Azarenka. That second serve points one isn't getting any better. So, if I don't mind Muguruza in this situation, as I said, she couldn't take advantage in that first set of a number of opportunities, but it's it could be all for nothing here if she can't consolidate her hard work over the last 10-15 minutes with a hold here. It looks like she's on the back foot here with a love 15 situation. I don't know if anyone on the stream is a particular NBA fan at all, but as a Miami Heat fan, it's certainly been a nice couple of days for a change. Going 2-0 up on Boston after coming back from, I think, double-digit deficits in both sets. If any of the NBA guys do pop on later, I'm going to ask them whether they think Miami is a good chance here in Game 3. They start as underdogs again, but they've certainly found a way through Games 1 and 2. Now we'll see if Muguruza is able to find a way here. Love 30 again. So we've only had the one hold of serve so far for this set, as we now have a triple break point for Azarenka. Looking at the other match, it looks like Novak Djokovic was able to finish off his match in 3 sets, 6-3, 4-6, 6-3 in 2 hours and 10 minutes. Again, 0 of 4 break points saved on the Djokovic serve, and he was able to convert 6 of his 21 opportunities. Now, if we just have a look at centre court, there's nothing on centre court for quite a while from a scheduling standpoint. There is nothing on there until Pliskova versus Mertens, which will be taking place in, still not for a couple of hours, is it? It's not for another just over 2 hours. So some great centre court scheduling there. Looking at Golden Bets 85. Muguruza's attacking second serves like she did against Konta. And look, she did the same against Coco Gauff in the previous round as well. You know, she's really been attacking it, and that's probably been something that I've wanted to see more from her. I think, that these positions, the option to attack is there. Unfortunately, it looks like here she hasn't been able to consolidate a good work on the return of serve with a service hold. So it looks like we're back on serve here. This will be an interesting game here coming up. There's a big difference between a set and 4-all or, Muguruza serving for the set at 5-3. So Azarenka is 0 for 3 on the holds of serve in this set so far. As we said, when we scroll back through it, Azarenka's gone hold to 30, hold to deuce with breakpoint saves, hold to deuce with breakpoint saves, hold to 30, hold to 30 from a 15-30 position, and then broken. That's why I think this is going to be a very key game here. If she can get back to 4-all and ask the question of Muguruza, it could be it's going to be an interesting spot to see what unfolds. As I said before, there's not a lot of other tennis to look at, so we might even wrap things up just at the end of the second set, unless there's any particular interest in continuing on through the third. I'm just having a look at some other matches. We've got the doubles qualification in Hamburg with Tommy Paul and Taylor Fritz pairing up. I had a question here. Thoughts on Mertens versus Pliskova? If I had to pick a side at the price, I would pick Mertens. I think she has the game to really trouble Pliskova on the clay. I think she can exploit Pliskova's movement a little bit. Mertens is obviously, she continues to fly under the radar basically wherever she plays. I think the price is maybe a slight value to Mertens. I'm not personally going to get involved in the match. If I had to pick a side, I'd go Mertens. My preferences today do lie with Dimitrov to beat Shapovalov and Svitolina at the minus games against Vondrousova. But look, it should be an interesting match. And it's an interesting matchup of styles. If Mertens can get a read on that Pliskova serve, then that'll go a long way for her. I think Pliskova is getting better on the clay, but she's not quite there yet. And when she's not quite there on hard court, looking at her efforts through the US Open and the lead up, I just don't quite see, this is probably the best opponent she's faced since the tour restarted. So I don't quite see it for her, particularly on a slow clay court with Mertens putting together some pretty impressive form over the last month, both on clay and on the hard courts in the US. I just think that the value probably lies with Mertens in this one. Now, we said that this was going to be a big service game here, and Azarenka has again found herself in a 15-40 hole. So it just hasn't, and this is something to keep an eye on, even if, Azarenka was able to find her way out of this particular set and win, 6-3, 6-4, or 6, well, she's not going to win 6-3, 6-4 now, 6-3, 7-5, or something along those lines. Just consider and have a look at, Muguruza has consistently found her way into service games. And I think, it's not a great sign, I think, for Azarenka. She had the same struggles against Kasatkina yesterday before Kasatkina rolled her ankle. Looking at the odds, I think, looking at the exchange at the moment, I think Azarenka was sitting at around $13, $14 for the French Open, which I think looks horribly short. Probably the only one who's probably less value at the moment is Coco Gauff, around $30, which blows my mind considering her clay form over the last couple of years. I think it's just very, very short considering the volume of tennis she's put together over the last month in particular. Now we'll see what Muguruza can do here, because a third set here will be interesting if she can find a way into it with Azarenka playing a couple of straight set matches here on a backup from the US Open. But like everything else in this particular set, nothing has come easy on serve. We've only had the one hold so far, and that was obviously from Muguruza. So if we just have a quick look at the stats again, we can kind of dig deeper into this match a little bit with not a lot else going on at the moment. So we've got in set two, they're both putting a lot of first serves in, but no one's winning points. It is going to be the case with the return points. What have we got here? 30 of the 44 points have gone against the serve at the moment, but Muguruza at 30-15 is 2 points away from tying this one up. We have a quick look at the live odds. So Muguruza into $2.20 there. If I have a look on the exchange, sitting around $2.38, $2.40. And that's probably going to drop out here maybe a little bit with the 30-all situation. Obviously for Azarenka, yes, it's one thing for her to be able to kind of break and get it back to 5-4, but then she's going to have to buck the trend of dropping serve and be able to consolidate that to get back to 5-all. So still a little bit to be done in this second set for Azarenka, but Muguruza is just a couple of points away if she can find a couple of first serves, or find the court with a couple of powerful ground strokes. So we'll see what unfolds there. Now, big spot here. So Azarenka is able to get that break point opportunity. Looking elsewhere, Bublik's up a set and 4-all against Morang in Hamburg. We said before, Say and Strycova in relative control in their doubles, as I think everyone expected. Looking at the Forley Challenger, and Thiago Monteiro has had to play qualifying there, which is a little bit of a shock for him. I think that must be a late alternate into there. Looking in France, we've got Barra is early against Gracheva. They're on serve early in the first set. Anaconda still in control up a set and 2-all in her, I think it's her return tournament overall in Zagreb. She's been pretty solid this week. Have now Muguruza bringing up a set point here in set 2. I think there's lots to talk about because there's nothing going on centre court in Rome. after the game that 3 hours of nothing before Pliskova and Mertens is the way to go. And that first set point goes begging for Muguruza. So back to deuce. And another break point. So obviously things are on a knife's edge here in this second set. Set point goes begging, and now a break point for Azarenka to get things back on serve. BT on Sports with the match scheduling. Look, it's a lot of it with no crowds. A lot of it just comes down to the TV situation. Night session. Look, for example, for today, if I just bring up the draw, just as the second break point is saved by Muguruza. Back to due. So a big moment here for the Spaniard. So on the centre court in Rome today at noon was Halep versus Putintseva. And then obviously that was done in about an hour because of injury. And then not before 2:30 was the Novak Djokovic match. And then not before 7 p.m. is Mertens versus Pliskova. So they're rolling that as a night session of Mertens Pliskova into Schwartzman Nadal. So look, it's probably a friendly European scheduling there. Obviously, it's when there's not much other tennis on, it's probably meaning that for the purposes of me jumping on and streaming, it's been good to kind of jump on for an hour and a half here and chat through this match. But with not a lot else on, it's tricky to kind of chop and change, and particularly when you're talking to yourself for an hour and a half, it's hard with not a lot of matches here, as Azarenka has a third breakpoint opportunity to get things back on serve. So the next match up, the next match that's likely to get started from a single standpoint in Rome will be Vondrousova versus Svitolina, and that will come after this Azarenka versus Muguruza match, which could be over in 15 minutes, or it could be over in an hour and a bit. I must say, Muguruza's picked a good time to start saving break points. Back to deuce again. So that's three that have been saved. And look, that's pretty solid considering before this she had only saved 2 for the rest of the match. Have a look at across the whole match here. Again, it's we had that first serve points one of Azarenka was sitting up around 83% in that first set. That's dropped down to 60, but we haven't seen any increase in that second serve points one. That's actually dropped from 31 to 20. We have seen a little dip in Muguruza from 64 and 60 down to 35 and 54, but she's been able to find a way to, as I said, up until this point, there's only been one hold of serve, so it's only needed a couple of first serves and a couple of key moments, and she's been able to find her way back into this match. She brings up a second set point. We'll see what happens here. Now, as I said, I will jump off after this set finishes. Do let me know. Look, send a comment or a tweet, or let me know if you find me rambling for over an hour and a half useful in these particular matches. I feel like, regardless of what happens from this point, I think we got a good little spot here with thinking that Muguruza could exert a bit of a scoreboard pressure here, given her tendency to get deep into these Azarenka service games. These are some things you can just pick up, obviously, from having a look at the stats and watching the match as well. But it looks like Muguruza's been able to tie things up here with the second set 6-3. It's been a tightly contested affair, but look, like in the second set, if Azarenka can exert a little bit of scoreboard pressure earlier, it's really going to go a long way here for her. But, each one of her she hasn't been able to get comfortable on her serve basically since the outset here. So it's been a tricky one. It'll be interesting to see what unfolds, and I might send out a tweet or two about it, but we might wrap it up there. Just to recap, if I had to pick a play for the rest of the day, it would be Dimitrov to beat Shapovalov later. And if I had to pick a second play, it would be Svitolina minus 4.5 games against Vondrousova. If you do have any questions or anything at any time, as I said, look, everything I'm doing is free. Nothing's behind any paywalls or subscriptions or anything. So send me a message anytime. I'm happy to chat or talk through anything in particular that might be of interest. Obviously, it's going to be a very busy couple of weeks coming up, with Roland Garros qualifying, and with things being a little bit friendlier time zone wise, it'll be good to get on here regularly and kind of talk things through. And I might do a couple of video previews instead of typing things out and sending them out to everyone. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, as I said, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for everyone who's dropped some comments. If you do have any ideas for any particular competitions or anything over the next couple of weeks, do let me know. I want to try and kind of get as many people involved and watching or thinking about tennis in some capacity, particularly with how things are at the moment. I think it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. Again, thank you for tuning in. It's just after 1 a.m. here, so I will get going, and I will chat to you all next time. All right, bye for now.